Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to today's class. This morning we'll be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verses 32 and 33. And the chapter is entitled When Dhritarashtra Quits Home, and we are in the section where Maharaj Yudhishthira finds out that Vidur and his uncle are missing. So he's trying to figure out where are his elders of the family, and we're very happy to have His Holiness Candramauli Swami with us. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to you and all glories to Srila Prabhupada Maharaj.
I hope Prabhupada, my obeisances to you. Thank you for coming and joining in. My obeisances to all the devotees. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tatra Sanjayam Asinam Prapachacho Dina Manasam Valgane Kwanastato Viddo Hinas Chanetrayaho. Translation: Maharaj Yudhishthira, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjaya, who was sitting there, and said, "Oh Sanjaya, where is our uncle, who is old and blind?" Verse 33. Ambachaharta putrat garta pitrivakha gata surit apimanyan pragye Atabandhu Sabaraya Asam Samaram Samalam Dagayam Duhito Patat Patat Tat Patat. Yudhishthira continues, where is my well-wisher, Uncle Vidura? Mother Gandhari was very afflicted due to her son's demise. My uncle Dhritarashtra was also mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very ungrateful. Did he therefore take my offenses very seriously, and along with his wife drown himself in the Ganga? So forth. Pandavas, especially Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna, anticipated the after effects of the battle of Kurukshetra. And therefore, Arjuna declined to execute the fighting. Fight was executed by the will of the Lord, but the effects of family agreement, as they had thought of it before, had come to be true. Maharaj Yudhishthira was always conscious of the great plight of his uncle Dhritarashtra and aunt Gandhari, and therefore he took all possible care of them in their old age and agreed conditions. When therefore he could not find his uncle and aunts in the palace, naturally his doubts arose, and he conjectured they had gone down to the water of the Ganga. He thought himself ungrateful because when the Pandavas were fatherless, Maharaj Dhritarashtra had given them all royal facilities to live. In return, he had killed all of Dhritarashtra's sons in the battle of Kurukshetra. As a pious man, Maharaj Yudhishthira took into account all his unavoidable misdeeds. He never thought of the misdeeds of his uncle and company. Dhritarashtra had suffered the effects of his own misdeeds by the will of the Lord. But Maharaj Yudhishthira was thinking only of his own unavoidable misdeeds. This is the nature of a good man and devotee of the Lord. The devotee never finds fault with others, but tries to find his own and thus rectify them as far as possible. And the Gyan Timidandosya Gyanandana Salakaya Taksun Militam Yena Tasman Shuddhavayana Sri Chaitanya Mano Bistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamma Yam Dadati Swam Padaditam. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Sestaya Vipaya Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste. Namaste on this very sweet day. Lord, why don't you share with the saints and students? First, get your days started. Panchakopa Tarubhishcha Hipa Sindhu Paviccha Titanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Vasudhi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Anasuya,
Yes, Maharaj.
you have that statement by Bhakti Tirtha Swami Guru Maharaj about community?
The four principles, Maharaj?
Yeah,
I can pull it up, Maharaj.
okay. One, this is from Bhakti Tirtha Swami's realizations on how community should develop it. Treat everyone you encounter as the success or failure of your own spiritual life depends on the quality of your interaction with them. Two, think of the person you love the most and aspire to treat everyone with that same quality of love. Three, view all conflicts as your own fault first. Realize that people in your present environment might be very well be the first people for whom you live out your life and whom are likely to be with you at the time of death. Number 3 is somewhat indigenous or indicative of what we're speaking. View all conflicts as your own fault first. And this is the quality of the great soul. They don't find fault or blame others, even though it may apparently be the other person's fault. And this is the same thing we're seeing here with Yudhisthira Maharaj. He was thinking of only how Dhritarashtra, in their youth, as the Pandavas took care of, how he took care of them. But he never considered what Dhritarashtra did after that in order to try to destroy the Pandavas. He overlooked that, didn't even think of it, doesn't mention it, and simply focuses on there seems to be a reason for separation, and he's blaming himself for that reason. In the very beginning of the Battle of Kurukshetra, before the battle actually, when Arjuna was on the chariot with Krishna and the war was about to begin, Arjuna came up with many reasons why he shouldn't fight, and this is one of them. Is how can we enjoy the kingdom at the expense of the lives of those we love, those who are our well-wishers. But in the same section described in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, towards the end, it is acknowledged that Arjuna's reasons for not fighting were very much the qualities of a good person. That was one of them. The other one was, if all the men in the society are killed, all the men in the battlefield are killed, then the women are unprotected, and then you have Vana Sanskara, unwanted population, and then the whole society goes to hell. And he gave many other reasons. And in one purport, Srila Prabhupada said these are the qualities of a good-hearted person. But Krishna had another program. Krishna could see that they were avaricious, greedy, and not giving the fair share of the community or of the nation to the Pandavas, who were the rightful heirs. And Krishna wanted to bring in Dharma. He wanted to have dharmic rule in society, and the Pandavas were illustrative of that in dharmic society. Give him the spoon. Yeah. And so when it became time for the battle, and Arjuna had made all of these nice arrangements, Krishna said, Sochamanda Socham Patyavadam Shabasase Agatam Zadatam Sincham Nanu Shochandi Panditaha. Arjuna, what you're saying is very nice. And I can say that is very intelligent, but I must call you a fool at the same time, because you're lamenting for not what is not lamentable. You're lamenting for the body, and therefore you're lamenting for something that is temporary or something that is contrary to religious principles. And so here we're seeing, as Prabhupada illustrates in the purport, that, what was the Pandavas concerned at the beginning, especially Arjuna, were actually unfolding in the same way. But it appears to be that way. But then again, Yudhisthira doesn't see the whole picture. And he will get the whole picture as this chapter goes on. But the point here is that when there appears to be some discord between people, in order to ameliorate the discord and bring things back to a friendly situation or an understandable situation, one should see themselves as the cause of the problem. And then from there, discuss it. Bhakti Tirtha rightly says, view all conflicts as your own fault first. It may not be your own fault, but still, in order to open up that discussion and solve the problem, that would be the way to. And this is the natural humility, and this is what we're seeing in not Dhritarashtra, but in Yudhisthira here. And Prabhupada said this is the quality of a good person. He always sees himself in the lower position. When something goes wrong, he always sees himself as the cause of the fault. This is Vaishnava. Vaishnava is non-confrontational. Of course, we can be sometimes confrontational when it comes to philosophical discussions. Of course, we don't initiate such things, but when they do arise, the devotee will not compromise the philosophy in order to patronize another person's wrong opinions. But generally, when outside of the philosophical discussions, when there is a conflict due to personality differences or misunderstandings, or just obviously some offenses that have manifested, the devotee always takes the humble position. And so it's interesting here. Now, Yudhisthira, he starts to speak and he starts to conjecture. You can see he seems to be acting like an ordinary human being who has many faults or deficiencies, not faults, but deficiencies. Oh, they went to the Ganges and they drowned themselves, and it was all due to me neglecting them and not take care of them properly. We find ourselves maybe doing that sometimes when something in our life goes wrong in relationship to some other situation. We start thinking it might have happened because of this, or this is what's happening now. As we grope for some answer. But usually it's always wrong at the beginning. And therefore, when everything is understood clearly, then everyone can move forward in developing the relationships in the proper way. And so this is a good quality. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has emphasized this quality in his prayers known as the Shikshastika, verse number 3. Trinadapi Sunitena Tayor Ivasa Hishnuna Maninam Manadena Kirtanhi. The humility, tolerance, pridelessness, and respect for others are the foundation by which a devotee executes their devotional service. These qualities are the characteristics of the soul's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it's manifested also as the ornamentation of a devotee's activities. So in that same expression, there is a verse that complements this. It says that one should wear this verse as one's ornament in executing devotional service. And the last part of the verse kind of illustrates the results of proper execution of this, and that is is Kirtaniya Sadarahi. One can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. So the result comes in the fact when one practices this verse, the qualities of this verse, one develops a taste for chanting and one wants to chant more and more and more. Because it says one should chant the holy name of the world in a humble state of mind. So by practicing these qualities, humility, tolerance, and all the qualities that are of the characteristic of a humble devotee becomes manifested. And when one chants the holy name of the Lord, they develop a sweet taste, and that sweet taste continues, and the devotee wants to chant more and more. So this is the Mahaprabhu makes the emphasis on this particular verse as the foundation for moving forward in devotional service. We understand bhakti is a series of steps that one goes from one step to another. The first step is Adavsrata Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya. And then the next one is Anartha Nivritti. Anartha Nivritti means to remove those obstacles which are inherent in one's consciousness as a way to continue on and make progress in devotional service. So these anarthas have to be destroyed. And there are 16 anarthas, 4 categories of 4 anarthas. Come by pious activities, anarthas that come by impious activities, anarthas that come by offenses, and anarthas that come by philosophical misconceptions. And each one of these categories has 4 categories, subcategories, and one has to somehow or other destroy these anarthas by the power of one's devotion as they execute that devotion under the guidance of one's spiritual master. And then, so this verse, Trinadapi Sunichena, is meant to help in a very direct way to eliminate these anarthas. Because by practicing these qualities, the devotee actually becomes dear to Krishna. Even though they may not be so expert at offering the activities of devotional service, if they develop the qualities, then the execution of devotional service becomes very pleasing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is ultimately the desire of the devotee to want to please the Lord. And the Lord is pleased by devotion, and these qualities illustrate that mood of devotion. And so one has to practice. And Lord Chaitanya doesn't make it easy. He says one has to be more humble than the blade of grass. So blade of grass is like, sometimes we say a straw in the street. Sometimes devotees make a little comparison saying grass, when you step on it, it comes back out, up. But when a piece of straw, it lays flat in the street, it doesn't come back up. So even more humbler than the grass is the straw, which lays flat. And so Lord Chaitanya made it very clear that these are the qualities of a Vaishnava. And he illustrated them and he emphasized them in his practice of Krishna consciousness. And we can see his devotees exhibited so many of these qualities in relationship to his in association with him and with each other also. To study the life of Lord Chaitanya and his devotees, they were, very, very endowed with many good qualities, especially humility, especially tolerance, and free from any false pride. That's Mahaprabhu's emphasis. And then the result is that the Yuga Dharma, the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, becomes a natural feature of the devotee's activities. It becomes easy and natural to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I would say you can go back to the verse for a minute. Okay. So, and it's interesting because the more elevated a person is, according to material arrangements, such as we see, that the highlier placed position a person has, the less they exhibit these qualities. That is, of course, the material tabernacle, the material energy is like that. And Yudhisthira Maharaj, I mean, he's now the king of the world. He's not just a small person. He's the emperor of the world. The whole battle through the Kshetra was fought in order to establish him on the throne. We heard about that in the ninth chapter of the same canto. And he lamented that so many soldiers had died because of that. So many ladies had lost their husbands, brothers, and sons in the war. And he was overwhelmed with grief, thinking all of this was done because of me. But Krishna wanted it. And that was the whole thing. And whatever Krishna wants, that becomes the standard by which a devotee acts. But Krishna wanted this. Krishna didn't even want this war. Krishna tried to avert the war in so many ways. And he even put himself in a position as becoming a peacemaker on behalf of the Pandavas. But Duryodhana was so avaricious and so much envious of the Pandavas, and that all of Krishna's attempts, were like ghee being poured on ashes. Nothing happened. And when that final attempt to avert the war, I mean, Krishna said, they're Kshatriyas. Give them 5 villages to rule. But Duryodhana was so greedy, he said, I will not even give them enough land to put a head of a pin on, but to speak of 5 villages. And 5 villages compared to the entire globe is nothing, but still he was so greedy. So greed somehow or other envelops a person's consciousness in such a way that they lose all recognition of what is right in life. And they act even against their own best interests. Greed is a very malicious characteristics that can enter into the life of a living being. And when a person becomes greedy, they lose all concern for others, and they just try to fill their greedy desires. Greed is an extension of lust. And when greed becomes so much, then you have war. Just like countries want the natural resources of other countries, so they get into some political intrigue to try to attain these resources. And the result, in many cases, is war. Many of the wars are fought over economic. In fact, most of the wars are fought over economic gain. Right? So this quality of greed. So therefore, a devotee practices these qualities and develops it. And the devotee becomes happy. Because humility really means to depend fully on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the actual characteristic by which humility expands itself. A devotee always thinks, I can't do anything, but with the mercy of Krishna, I can do many things. So that is real humility. That Krishna is great. And if I simply take shelter, depend on Krishna and pray for his mercy, and my execution of devotional service becomes successful. And that's how devotee makes progress in Krishna consciousness. Ultimately, Krishna provides everything the devotee needs as long as the devotee depends on him in a humble way. And this idea of humility is somewhat contrary to the materially oriented society, where you have to work hard, you have to defeat your opponents, you have to somehow or other do whatever you can to get ahead of you in the world, even in society, even amongst your own groups. Sometimes people, even amongst their own groups, they look to be the top person. Everyone wants to be the top person, everyone. So there's many conflicts. And you saw that even in the Gaudiya Math. When Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati left, he wanted to establish the rule of the Gaudiya Math with a governing body commission. But they neglected that order, and then two prominent sannyasis started to fight amongst themselves for the position of being in charge of the Gaudiya Math. And then it carried on for so many years and actually wound up in the courts of India for years and years and years. And Prabhupada writes about that. They failed to follow the instructions. The persons wanted to be the main man. They felt that they were the qualified person. And therefore, the whole Gaudiya Math fell apart because of this infighting. And we might even see that within our own society, how that can cause. But devotees always take the humble position. And even if they are qualified, their qualifications are actually their characteristics. A devotee is glorified not so much by what they do, but who they are. You'll see many devotees in the history of Krishna spiritual life have done so many great things, opening up temples and inspiring so many people to come to spiritual life. But some of them are gone now, no longer practicing spiritual life because they became proud of their achievements, and their pride led them to committing offenses against others. And then there was a lot of infighting based on that. And then everything starts to disintegrate because of that. But the real quality of a devotee is their character. And as it's mentioned here, although Yudhisthira is so qualified, I mean, he is known as Dharmaraj. He's the son of Yamaraj, and he has all good qualities. In fact, from the spiritual point of view, one of his good qualities got him in trouble. Not in trouble, it just caused him to act against the will of Krishna. When you're dealing with politics, of course, devotees don't get involved with politics. But politics means lying, cheating, and position yourself in such a way as to defeat your opponents. That's politics. And Prabhupada talks about that sometimes. And then the devotee said, well, should we adapt some of these things? Prabhupada says, no, bhakti is not like that. Bhakti is love. Politics means violence. Politics means, posturing yourself in certain ways. When politics enters into the spiritual communities, it sort of divides the devotee, and everyone thinks in terms of power, position, or facilities, rather than thinking in terms of how to please and serve the Lord by following his instructions through the spiritual master and working cooperatively as a group to satisfy the Lord. But here, in Dharmaraj, he was asked by Krishna to tell a lie. And he never told a lie in his whole life. And he was actually known for that. And when he was asked by Krishna to tell a lie, he hesitated. He didn't want to do it. But eventually, something happened. And he didn't tell a lie, but he said something that was a half truth. And that's not what Krishna wanted. Krishna wanted a direct line. And therefore, it says that because he disobeyed the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, from the moral principle, how can I lie? But Krishna said, hey, this is what needs to be done in order to win. And he didn't do it. And they said he had to see hell because of that. Because he followed his Dharma. So we follow Dharma. We follow all of the principles that make up the qualities of the good Vaishnava, the character of the great devotee. But Krishna is the standard by which morality exists. And if Krishna wants to do something different, then that becomes morality. So in this war, Krishna did that. He told Arjuna when he was fighting against Karna, and Krishna knew that Arjuna couldn't win against Karna. Karna was a much better fighter than Arjuna. And at one point, Arjuna did knock his chariot wheel off, and it broke his chariot, and Karna fell off the chariot. Now, when a person is no longer on the chariot and is not fighting, you don't fight. You stop the fighting, you wait till he gets back in his position, then the fighting resumes. That is Kshatriya codes. But when that happened, and Karna was fixing his chariot wheel, he never thought that Arjuna would do anything because he understood Arjuna would follow Dharma. But Krishna said, here's your chance. You better kill him now. And he did. And when Karna was dying, he was so shocked that Arjuna had broke those principles. And so Krishna did that in this war many times in order for the Pandavas to win. Sometimes, Prabhupada says, sometimes that, of course, this is politics, this is war. So things go on, and morality and civility do not follow the normal rules. But you'll see here that Yudhisthira, although a great king and powerful emperor, he has a heart of a Vaishnava, that he is completely always seeing himself as the fault behind anything that is of the misdeeds. Just like after the battle of Kurukshetra, he lamented. We mentioned that, how he lamented the loss of so many lives just because he was to be situated on the throne. But Bhishma Dev, Krishna even told Yudhisthira directly, you didn't commit any mistake. This was the program for you to get established on the throne. But he didn't listen to Krishna. Even hearing from Krishna, he couldn't accept that. He was thinking he was the cause of the war, and he was the cause of all of the people who died in the war. It was actually Bhishma Dev that was empowered by Krishna to speak the truth. And when he heard from Bhishma Dev, then he became somewhat sober and accept, because he wasn't going to even accept the position of king of the world, because he was thinking it was all my fault that this battle actually occurred. But Krishna said, no, actually, this is my will. And when Krishna wants something, then civility, morality, and all of the things that people live by that are considered to be acceptable, good qualities, are secondary to whatever Krishna wants. But Prabhupada says Krishna will never do anything to act against religious principles, but in certain cases, he does. And therefore, a devotee has to be somewhat attuned to that before they can actually act on it. And therefore, it's not so easy to understand that. Arjuna couldn't understand it. Yudhisthira couldn't understand it. Many of the Pandavas and others couldn't understand why Krishna was forcing this war, because he wanted to put Dharma on the throne. And therefore, The idea was to win by all means and establish saintly rule on the throne. Now, this was a very rare situation in the history of Vaishnav culture, where war becomes the feature by which one has to establish themselves in following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada said that this Battle of Kurukshetra was the last religious war ever known in the world. Ever since then, the wars that we've been exposed to over the history of the last 5,000 years have all been wars based on enmity, envy, and what's the last one? Economic development, economic gain. So all the wars today are not dharmic. They're all based on some selfish, greedy leaders in order to exploit other areas of the world, or because there's enmity between cultures. We've seen that if a person is born in a certain culture, another culture will dislike that person automatically, not even knowing that person, but because they belong to that particular that culture, that particular country, they are discriminated against. And this is today's types of conflicts. This is the effects of Kali Yuga. So the last religious war was the Battle of Kurukshetra that happened when Krishna was personally present. Okay, so we're hearing a little bit about the good qualities of the Vaishnava, in this case, Maharaj Yudhishthira.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for such a wonderful class. And I'm hoping that this will create questions, because it is definitely a very powerful topic, especially trying to develop the qualities that we have heard by Maharaj Yudhishthira. If Maharaj, before I open up, actually, we can definitely open up a question, because there's already one that came through in the chat, and that I'm going to read that out, Maharaj, and that is by Anahita Mataji, and she said, Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, I have questions. Finally, she says, in regards to the quote, we shouldn't tell people if they are in the wrong or correct them at times. This was discussed at the start of the class. To what extent do we do this? I understand that may be specific situations where this might not count. But I always remember teachers and parents telling me that if you don't tell someone when they are in the wrong, then how will they ever know to correct themselves or learn? But that, should we tell them by leading by example, or actually physically telling them in a constructive way?
Well, the statement by Bhakti Tirtha Swami is about developing community. And developing community means developing relationships. And developing relationships comes by working together in a cooperative way. When one is in the position of a guru or parent or a teacher, they are required to make sure that those persons working under them are guided in the right way. So that means, part of that means to point out where there is some discrepancy, some mistake, some apparent fault. So that is a different category of understanding. And that is there for those who have the position of leadership. They can do that. They should do that. And in order for them to not allow wrong things to move into the life of their followers, wrong understandings or wrong actions. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami's thing is more like on a one-to-one basis, based on how we should interact with others. And that is more or less, and that is the foundation also, that by taking the humble position, then the devotee can start to open up a meaningful dialogue in order to see where actually there is this discretion. So what Bhakti Tirtha Swami is saying is the foundation for interpersonal relationships, as opposed to leadership and followers. But you have to use the principles according to time, place, and circumstance.
Thank you, Maharaj. I hope that helped, Anahita. Yeah, she said that makes sense. Perfect. There's a question in the chat by Rishabhadas, and then I'll go to Mother Sri Devi. He says, Hare Krishna, dear Gurudev, how much can we quote unquote, disobey the law of Krishna? Theoretically, what are the principles?
You can't.
That's what I thought.
You can't disobey the law, Krishna's law in any situation. You have to follow it. Because the laws work in such a way, if you don't follow them, you get a reaction automatically, a negative reaction. So learning the principles that govern the activities of a Vaishnava, and the first thing is obedience to superior, in this case, the spiritual master, and who's the representative of Krishna. When Krishna was personally present, he did something different. But that's a situation. That's a case of emergency. It's not like a standard that we can use to just like fulfill our own ideas. When Krishna was personally present, he gave that instruction, or he arranged things to happen in that way. And this is politics too. It's not bhakti. Right? Krishna was a Kshatriya when they were fighting. And so he used certain methods in order to win. But there's also another thing is that the Pandavas were Vaishnavas. The Pandavas were Krishna's true followers. Duryodhana and his followers were greedy and avaricious, and they were against Krishna. So Krishna favored those who took shelter of him when there was a conflict between both parties. And that's just natural for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to act in that way. I'll use a statement which you may not understand. But Prabhupada says when you're dealing with cheaters, you also have to cheat sometimes. Now, if you take that out of context and you become a cheater in every situation, and then you'll go to hell. But if you understand that principle and how it's used in order to glorify devotional service or religious principles, or to protect yourself from being destroyed because of persons who are avaricious or violent, like that. So, Prabhupada does, when you really listen to Prabhupada's statements, you'll find that the statements apply to circumstances and not so much as a general principle. Many of them. There are general principles too. So there's general principles and details. Just like Prabhupada would say, a Brahmin is so honest that if a thief comes into his house and says, "Where is your money?" he'll show him where the money is. But a Kshatriya won't do that. But a Brahmin will, a real Brahmin. So you have to understand things in relationship to situations. That's why we have spiritual masters. That's why we have Shastras. That's why we discuss things. You see, more when we give a class or we make points on philosophy or spiritual practice, there's always discussion. Because nothing is just, very dogmatic and, we like to live a life like that. I mean, this is the way it is. I follow it. That's it. Boom. But that's true on certain levels, or on the level of principles. When details somehow interfere with principles, then sometimes the details overshadow the principles. And Prabhupada actually, in starting Krishna conscious movement, he neglected some principles because the preaching would never have gone on if he followed the principles that were followed in the Indian culture. When he came to the West, he had to adjust principles in order for him to preach Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness is not so easy. Not so easy. Prabhupada was saying it's for highly intelligent people. It takes intelligence to execute this process. And when one devotee says to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I don't have any intelligence, Prabhupada would say, get some. You get it from Guru, you get it from Shastra, you get it from Krishna. You have to understand how things go. Everything is not so easy and understandable. That's why you find that there are people who follow the same process, but they have a different understanding of how things go on. That's the dynamics of diversity. So diversity only has value when there is unity there. When there is no unity, then diversity causes dissension. Therefore, if we're united around Krishna consciousness and a desire to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead in executing our service, then diversity actually becomes something that enhances the whole process of bhakti. Just like you have a garden. Now, if all the flowers were red and all the flowers were roses and all the flowers smelled the same, it wouldn't be such an attractive garden. But if you have a beautiful garden and you have different color flowers, different sizes, different shapes, different aromas, and it's all nicely arranged, then that garden is very, very beautiful and attractive. So variety is also the element of execution of devotional service. The variety has to apply in a unified way in order to bring about the essence, and that is service to the Supreme Lord accordingly. So we have to understand things according to time, place, circumstance, and that requires intelligence. But the devotee lives by character, not simply by one's abilities.
Thank you, Marge. Character, not by ability. Thank you, Marge. Marge, sorry.
Abilities will follow character, but character has to be first.
Thank you, Marge. Thank you. I think Silpesh Prabhu, you had your hand up earlier before Mother Sri Devi did. Do you want to go ahead?
Hare Krishna. No, I think my question has already been answered in the first question. Thank you.
All
Hare
right.
Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Mother Sri Devi, go ahead.
Thank you, Alicia. Dear Guru Maharaj, my humble obeisances, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to you, Guru Maharaj, and Bhakti Tita Maharaj. On these principles, these 4 principles of community building, as you correctly reminded us and guided us, that this is one-to-one, and every situation has to be seen in the context. Because why I'm saying this is because in abusive relationships, the abuser is always telling the victim, it's all your fault, it's all your fault, it's all your fault. And the poor lady is buying into it because she's so beaten up and she cannot think straight. And so she takes it on as though it is all her fault alone. So this view all conflicts as your own fault first. sometimes can actually be detrimental for the person in an abusive relationship.
Just repeat your question.
It's not a question so much as a comment, Guru Maharaj.
So say it again, though. What is that comment?
I'm saying that in abusive relationships, there's such a huge power differential that the abuser is always telling the victim it is all her fault. You made me angry, so I had to beat you. You made me angry, so that's why I didn't do this. It's all her fault all the time.
Well, yeah, obviously you have to ameliorate that by a third party. Because when you talk about abuser relationships, you can't say that the word abuser and relationships are contrary to each other. There's no relationship when there's abuse. There's just exploitation. Relationship means that there are two people working together to achieve something. So abuse is a faulty relationship. It's not a real relationship. Oh, well, obviously there has to be ameliorations. We have what is called, what is that called? Anasuya, what is that statement? Rajalila is good at that. She is, what do they call that?
Non-violent communication, Maharaj.
That's part of it, but there's also
Conflict resolution?
yeah, conflict resolutions. If a person is accusing another person, does that make the situation any better? The person will never appreciate that and can never come up and have that relationship with that. You'll see that in prisons. People commit a crime, they go to prison, and then they have to be pushed out of the society for a long time, and they're in the hostile environment. And they come back out, and they're not any different than when they were before they went in. That's why in the sixth canto it says that punishment doesn't extract the person's wrong qualities. It is by the process of bhakti that uproots the sinful desire or the wrong motivation by which a person does things. Because all these things are rooted within the consciousness, are rooted within the soul. You can't force a relationship and expect the relationship to be pleasant. People try to do that with their children sometimes. And sometimes you have to be strict with the children, but without the loving component there, then force itself may bring about some obedience, but in the long run, it'll break the relationship.
Hope that helps. Sorry, Maharaj.
Relationships are based on respect for each other. When this respect is lost, relationships are lost.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
That was powerful. Thank you, Maharaj. Yes, Namrata, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Little follow up first before asking my question to to what Sri Devi Mataji asked. In context with that, when a person is doing fault finding to find a solution to a problem, and when the person is doing fault finding for sense gratification, for some prajalapa, So is both these things on same platform? Should be, I mean, in both these cases, it should be avoided.
And understanding the situation, it's not about finding fault with the person. It's exposing the wrong activity or the wrong mentality that created the activity. Rather than blaming the person, blame the fault. And see the fault or the wrong activity as something that needs to be rectified. And that'll automatically help the person. But by blaming a person, sometimes that's done, sometimes in the very beginning, so this was your fault, but actually let's try to work it out in such a way that we can understand that that's the whole thing. So, when you go to a doctor, there's different kinds of doctors. There's the allopathic doctor, and there's the, I'm getting into a little shaky ground here. There is an allopathic doctor, and there's the Ayurvedic doctor. So the allopathic doctor generally doesn't look for the cause of the disease, but he tries to treat the symptom of the disease. And so based on the symptom, the medicine is given. And a lot of times the disease stays or reroots itself in another part of the body. Allopathic or Ayurveda is more of a holistic type of cure where they try to understand the cause. And then by uprooting the cause, then you can treat the disease also. Or recognizing the cause. So yeah, so the idea is to deal more with what caused the situation to happen like that, even though people are involved. Rather than blaming the people, blame the situation. And that helps people to work together to change the situation rather than putting a person in a defensive position.
Yes, I quite agree. Blaming a person really, we just ignite the person if we are blaming the person. We are
Yeah.
directly hitting the false ego they have if we are blaming the person.
Then the communication is interfered with. You can't communicate. You break down the communication.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Guru Maharaj. So actually my question was, Anartha Nivritti, is it the byproduct or should we make special endeavors for that?
To eliminate anartha nivritti?
Yes.
Bhakti is the process by which anarthas are destroyed, especially the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, particularly. And recognizing the anartha and not feeding into it at the same time. Like anarthas from impious activities are to accept sinful activities as a way to satisfy one's senses. That's one of them. And another one is or to accept activities that are contrary to the religious principles. 2, envy. 3, fault finding and duplicity. And 4 is pratishta. Pratishta means the desire for fame. These are anarthas by impious activities. So people carry these things with them due to their material contamination or association. And when they enter into bhakti, these things will be a block to their progress unless they uproot them. And bhakti helps to uproot it, but at the same time, if you don't recognize that you have this anartha and try to avoid it by applying the contrary element, just like anger, useless anger, and then anger can be explosive sometimes, and all of a sudden, there's a whole situation. People speak things they don't even mean. And then later on, they're sorry about that. And then you have to think, oh, all right, so I have to forgive that person. And then you practice the element of forgiveness, which seems to neutralize the effect of anger. But forgiveness has to be applied even before anger starts to manifest. And then anger won't manifest if forgiveness is applied completely in the situation. But anger can sometimes be so explosive that one cannot even think clearly to even consider forgiving when the situation occurs. But a devotee shouldn't fall victim to that. They should be able to control that anger and learn to see the situation without becoming angry.
I'm just trying to understand this point. You said forgiveness should be given even before when anger is already put out. So that is, in a way, that is mercy.
I don't know what you mean by mercy. It's a way to it's a checkmate on anger. Check it.
Okay.
You're checking that anger force by practicing forgiveness.
I'm sorry, Gurmaharaj, little more elaboration if you can help me understand. This is really interesting if you can.
Somebody gets you angry and you're starting to feel that anger. Before you speak, you start thinking, maybe I should, I can feel I'm getting angry, I'm going to say something, and then, all right, let me just forgive that person and then deal with the situation after. Not when anger manifests, then you can't deal with the situation. So practice forgiveness. Forgiveness is the antidote for anger. That makes sense, Anasuya?
Yes.
Mark, you
Yes,
could
now.
see my it's funny because when Namrata was saying is it mercy, I'm saying no, it's stress. That's what's coming to mind. I'm like, no, but Mark, that's a quality that it's kind of difficult to develop in the beginning stages, Marge, from, quick to check it before anger. That's pretty intense, Marge.
Yeah, some people can do it, some people can't, some people realize it after or even during. Like if a person you are familiar with or working with has a tendency to make mistakes all the time or do the wrong thing, and then anger may also be harder to control. But maybe with a stranger in a situation that appears for the first time, it becomes more easier to control that anger because you don't you say, oh, this person is always making these, doing the wrong thing or acting in the wrong way. And I've experienced that with disciples sometimes, that with disciples that are somewhat unable to understand how to do things, even after given so many instructions. And then sometimes anger comes up to emphasize what is needed to be done. Prabhupada also did that also. But he was able to control the anger.
Marge, is it because sometimes because I come across the situation with me that we get angry, I get angry at someone because we expect them, lack of a better word, to know better. Like duh, and then we get upset because we think that it's such a common sense, how
Right.
come you don't get it? And then, but I think it's because it's on me because we expect them. So I think is it because we are expecting it, so therefore we shouldn't expect? I mean,
Expectations are there in relationships, otherwise how the relationship can go on. But if it depends on the quality of that relationship. But expectations shouldn't be the motivation for activities. That we're always expecting a person to think or act in a certain way. You can expect that is an unreasonable expectation. But just like, all right, so you're married, you have a husband. So the husband, instead of taking the paycheck and coming and taking care of all the bills, he goes to the gambling casino and loses all the money. He can't pay the bills. So it was expected that he would come home and pay the bills, and that's his role in that relationship. So to become upset about that would be somewhat, or to act in an expecting way would be normal. But if you don't have that relationship, if you're walking with people around you, and you expect people to act in a certain way, and somebody doesn't, then you just write it off as, well, just the way it is. Or sometimes you say, well, that person is just ignorant, or something like that.
yeah, especially when we are driving on the road and we expect them to use their senses to drive properly, and then they do something stupid on the road, and we just brush it off sometimes.
Then road rage jumps in.
Oh, Marge. Yes, Marge.
People
Yes.
in other countries don't know too much about road rage, but those in America know what road rage is. It's really, people used to carry guns and shoot each other when people weren't driving properly or acting properly. There was one story, I heard this story only once, I don't know the validity of it, but one man, he had come from India, now he was in the US. And so they were stopped at a traffic light. He was the car behind the main car, which was in front of the light. So when the light changed green, the Indian man started blowing his horn to force the other guy. And see, the other guy got so mad, he got out of his car, turned around and shot the guy. Yeah, but in India, that would be natural. India, you blow your horn and people say, oh yeah. Now they even have signs in India, don't blow your horn. You've seen that. This is the modern India now.
I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, you'll see that in Bombay and other places, and horns, because people in India use horns for, like, well, horn means I'm coming. That's what it really means. I'm coming. And so you're just alerting someone that you're coming. And everybody always tries to go past the other guy anyway. That's the way they drive it in. If you try that in another country, you might, find yourself in a very difficult situation with someone.
Maharaj, interestingly, when we went to Mayapur this year, and this is Parikshit's first time to India. He has never been to India. So, and I've been there many times before I became a devotee. And when we were driving in the cab from the airport to Mayapur, I was sleeping the whole way because I get very easily car sick. Parikshit was awake, alert. When he got to Mayapur, he says to me, he says, India runs on, no, he said, Indian traffic runs on telepathy.
Indian traffic what?
Runs on telepathy. Because people know someone is coming and they get out of the way with a honk. Like, is this runs on telepathy? That's what he said.
I didn't catch that phrase you said. I don't know what it said.
Telepathy. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Telepathy, is that how you say it, Maharaj?
Oh, telepathy.
Yes, yes, sorry, telepathy, yes. He says that's how the Indian traffic runs.
Indian traffic runs on one rule. And there's only one law in Indian traffic. Don't hit anybody. That's the only rule.
Actually, Marsh, when I was in Mayapur, that again, I was hit by a what they call them, Toto now. It used to be the rickshaws, now it's Toto. We were I think we were in front of visiting Chankazi Samadhi, and we were getting into the Toto, and I was putting Pritchett in the car because of his leg. And because I was in the way of the Toto, he hit me at the back and just ran away. Right on my lower back, like bang. I was like, oh, Krishna Chaitanya, talk about purification.
You're very humble.
No, Marge, I was trying to watch my mind. No.
Yeah, so cultures also you have to recognize, the difference in how cultures are different in the way people interact and the way they express. So sometimes you can get in trouble because you don't know the local culture.
Yeah, I just told Pritchett, don't open your mouth when you're in, just keep quiet. I'll do the talking. Yes, Sridevi, go ahead. I'm sorry, Sridevi, go ahead.
I don't know if it is appropriate to expect a certain code of behavior when we enter into management offices of ISKCON. Is that also something where we should expect certain etiquette, or we should just say, okay, Krishna, whatever happens over here now, there's just, it's out of my control, and just, accept whatever behavior is dished out to us? Or we should say, this is not Prabhupada's mood, Prabhu or Mataji, we really need to do things better so that, people, the whole world is watching ISKCON. And if we carry on our activities like this, how people will come to ISKCON?
Thank you.
That's a good point, Sridevi.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, the quality of a devotee is his behavior.
Pretty powerful. Yeah. Thank you, Sridevi.
I made that point. Vaishnava is understood as a perfect gentleman.
Hmm.
The lady. In other words, they give respect to everyone.
Thank you, Marge. Any other points from devotees? Such a very lively discussion, a lot of questions, all boiling down to Vaishnava etiquette, all boiling down to how we treat each other, and accepting and embracing each other as our beloved in one of the four principles. So thank you for those wonderful questions. If there are no questions, Marge, would you like to end with a round of chanting?
Yeah, I would. Oh, let me secure my beads.
Sure, Marge.
What are you waiting for?
Hare Krishna, Mataji, I want to make a little announcement for tomorrow's class.
Please go ahead. It's all yours.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Tomorrow, Maharaj is going to give class to Bhakti Sangha devotees on the occasion of Balram Jayanti here in USA. The topic will be Balram Leela, and I'll be posting the link and the poster today on the WhatsApp groups. Thank you all so much. Please check the timing. If the timing is 12:20 p.m. UK time, 20 minutes later than our regular time. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you, Srimati. Thank you.
So, Jai Shri Krishna, Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srimasi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Before I begin, Anasuya, we're coming every Tuesday to host our program,
Yes, Maharaj.
and I'm very grateful for that. Do you have any extra time where you could host another day?
Maharaj, I have to wait till October. The reason being is Dear Krishna is out of the country and he's my backup. His mother left her body a couple of weeks ago, so he has to cause up some stuff over there. So let me work it between him and Prikshit, and I will definitely let Srimati know, Maharaj.
Yeah, we could. We're a little short on Zoom hosts, and
Yes.
and I notice every time you're here, we get the best conversations.
Oh, Maharaj, please, it's all by your mercy, Maharaj. No, it's by your mercy, Maharaj.
If you come on when you're not here, just kind of watch from the other, you'll see that it doesn't happen like that. It's only when you're here.
Oh, Maharaj, no, it's only by the mercy of yourself and all the devotees that's inspiring me to do the service, a little service that I can do for you, Maharaj. But I will definitely.
I'm grateful for that. I always look forward to Tuesday.
Oh, thank you. I will definitely work it out. I'll talk with Prikshit and with Dear Krishna when he comes back, and I'll work out some days and I'll speak with Srimati when I can iron some days out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If you can, of course, don't put yourself in a position where you have to struggle to do it, but you can, it'll be nice.
All right, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hey, hey, Jai Shri Krishna, Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srimasi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Hari Hari Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jai Sri Krishna, Jai Candramauli Swami. We're great to be back. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Thank
for all
you.
for
Thank you
joining.
so much, Maharaj, and thank you to all the devotees for joining us, and thank you for this wonderful, lively discussion on the class. And we hope you all have a wonderful day. Vanchakaptibhyascha, Kripasindhabhevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Candramauli Swami ki jai. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much.
Candramauli Swami ki jai.
Jai.
Voice of Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.